This is gonna take me a while to do the whole floor. Well, another day, another set of brand new shiny parts that have no right to be on this vehicle. Yeah, got some new taillight housings. They were brand new, $10 a piece. That's not bad. For putting lights in these, I didn't have the the bulbs obviously, but also going to need the little bulb holders, kind of like that. But yeah, once I pick some of those up, those will be working lights. Yeah, for now they've completely eliminated the last few major holes in the cab, so if it happens to rain again, hopefully shouldn't get too wet inside the cab. So right now, aside from that, I also went and I've got some, went and bought some brand new fasteners for the interior. I've been holding on to the fasteners for the interior, but unfortunately the way things turned out, most of them were kinda rusty and ugly to begin with, and then I went and left the box I was putting all the fasteners in outside in the rain for a few days, and that kinda meant I just had a box full of rust. Figured it was just cheaper and easier to start over with some nice new ones, and these ones are, I believe, should be galvanized or something, so they won't rust out quite as bad. I was also going to do seam sealer around the edges today, but the shop was out and said they hadn't had any in stock since 2016, so yeah, they're bringing some in tomorrow. Yeah, just seam sealer, keep the moisture out, help it look a little bit nice. Yeah, I've been thinking some more about the interior. You know, clean it up, paint it up, and then I'm basically pretty much thinking just getting a sheet of fiberboard or something. Basically, what they did for the door panels, it's just cardboard and fabric, and screw that to our mounting brackets here, and call that good enough. Provide a little bit of sound deadener and hide some of these ugly welds. And yeah, as well, I've also been thinking ahead to the future when I eventually reinstall the stereo. We don't have any speakers in here anymore at the moment, but I'm thinking have two speakers either end of the that top pillar. Yeah, we can listen to some old cassette tapes on the road. But clean paint, seam sealer, you know, keep things nice. Keep things nice in this heap. And eventually I gotta do the wiring. Alright, well, I've been doing seam sealer around all over the place, and yeah, I've got the floor all seam sealered up. It's managed to go ahead and just blow a little bit of dust in there, but you know, that's not bad, it's just structural. Got that, got the roof seam sealered up. Planning on doing another coat of paint on top of everything. The full tube I had, I didn't really have a cap for it, so I just kinda decided to use it all up, and so kinda went crazy and just seam sealered pretty much every single edge we did any welding around. Also, since I was at it, finally got the outside edges of the windows painted up, and I just finished installing these. I've got silicone, clear silicone around the edges to help put a watertight seal around these windows, and you can see through them now. Well, you could if they weren't highly reflective, but yeah, I think those will be pretty nice. Other news, yesterday I did a bit of work fiddling around with some more of the electrical stuff. I'm slowly yet surely drawing diagrams and working out the wiring. Just takes time, and I've already identified a couple systems, like there's a fuse for a seatbelt warning, but there aren't any plugs going to the seat And the seats are the seat belts, and yeah, that's an entire fuse on the fuse block that, far as I can tell, is only running a wire to the indicator light on the dash, and it's not actually doing anything. So that's fun. There's a few things like that I think I might just eliminate, because I'm not planning on installing electrically censored seat belts in this thing. Would not be a bad idea at all for me to install shoulder belts in this thing at some point, because right now it only has lap belts connected to the seats. But yeah, someday we'll put that back in too. Well, another day, another bit of the Pinecone taken off. I'm working on test fitting a few other odd options, and there's quail having a fight over there out in the field. Actually don't see that all that often. So yeah, anyways, I'm working on various odds and ends, including the gas struts, the shock absorbers, and thinking I should probably pick up some new ones. Overall, full extended length is about 26.5 inches from tip to tip. And then the collapsed length, can you tell why I'm replacing these yet? Looks to be 17 inches. I don't know if these are specific to a 40 Econoline or not, but they seem to be pretty generic looking enough that I can probably find something that'll mount up just fine. I have to say, these are probably some of the easiest shock absorbers I've ever done in my life, just because, well, there's the top end, there's the bottom end, and yeah, 2 nuts and it's out. Well, I've got all 4 of these shock absorbers out of the rear end. I haven't gotten the 2 out of the front end yet, but I'm going to go ahead and assume they're all about as dead as these ones are. And these ones are pretty dead. The beefier shock absorbers here on this side were the ones that were on in front of the drive axle, the dually axle. And then these smaller ones were behind the single trailing axle. But then the next thing that I'm finally getting around to is got this secondary brake cylinder here that's empty. I happen to have some old brake fluid lying around that I've been holding on to, and I know when you're doing things properly, you kind of want to use brand new brake fluid. This stuff has been opened before and it's been sitting around for quite a long time, but I kind of figure, given that I'm just throwing, fluid in to see where it's leaking out, that stuff's probably going to end up on the ground anyways, so I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. What I'm going to try doing just for right now is I'm just going to fill up that reservoir, hit the brake pedal a couple times, and see if I can see any obvious fluid dribbles dribbling out. Which might be a little interesting given that there's, well, I'm currently parked over a lake again. I'm really assuming wherever the brake is, I'm thinking it's going to be back more along where the lines head back to the rear axle, and it's a bit drier back here, so if it's leaking directly under the cab, then it's going to be tricky to see, but I don't know. I'll see what we find. Well, I have to say this was kind of inconclusive at best, but this little test did show me that this secondary doohickey up here that seems to send vacuum to the secondary vacuum booster, it does appear to leak fluid out the top there, so that's something to check, but I don't really think that's the reason why this secondary cylinder itself is losing fluid, unless, yeah, no, it's not actually connected, because this brake line is connected up to that cylinder. Those 2 reservoirs aren't directly connected in any way that I'm aware of. They kind of indirectly connect the vacuum to each other, but the brake fluid shouldn't be connected in any physical way between the 2. I kind of stomped on the brakes for a little bit while it was running. It was having fluid go down, but I kind of assume that's mostly just it percolating throughout the system. You know, trying to fill up the cylinder that I haven't even bothered trying to bleed by myself, because it's not going to work so well. I'm probably going to come back in a day or two and see if that reservoir's gone down at all from just sitting there. And yeah, and if it has, maybe see if there's any fresh leak spots anywhere. Looks like it might storm, so I'll head back inside and resume this another day. We're making spacers.
Redneck body lift. I tried to talk him into hockey pucks, but no.
But these are even harder.
Yeah, these aren't gonna squash.
And we're thinking,
They
since
better not squash anyway.
we just are cutting these square sections and then the tubular sections and doubling up, and we'll have a much wider footprint and stronger material as well.
Yeah, so we'll have a fastener going through here, and then the stock body mount for the bed sitting on top of it.
Yeah.
And then that spaces it up so that we have some chance in hell of clearing the wheel wells.
Yeah. So if we ever go over bumps in this thing, the wheels hopefully shouldn't rub against the
Yeah, your
bottom of the bed.
your $1,300 worth of new tires won't go squeak, squeak, squeak against the bed.
Yeah. Yeah, or thunk thunk.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could just put bigger bump stops in.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, but then we lose flex.
Yeah.
And if we lose flex, we can't take it to Moab.
No. And, you know, we're definitely taking this thing to Moab.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what we need to do? We need to bring a Jeep along and see if we can run Moab with a Jeep on the back of it.
Hey, you know, if we can, we could do a recovery surface.
There you go! Roll your Jeep over on Moab? We're here to save the day. And of course, as you can plainly see, we're using nothing but the finest parts and materials. We'd also like to thank Tupperware for supplying the shield for that's keeping all the hot metal sparks from entering Elliot's paint cabinet.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyways, rinse and repeat, so on and so forth. And for reference, this is about what we're thinking. This is actually turning out about as good as I could have ever hoped for. I have to say, when the material is thick enough, the flux core works really quite well. Definitely getting good heat penetration. Yeah, I'm just gonna do up these four right now, since this is the smaller section of frame rail that I can get off by myself. Well, I went and ran out of flux core about part of the way through, but I've got two of them welded in all the way. But yeah, I threw it back on the frame here just to test and see how it looked, and seems pretty good. It doesn't seem to wobble or flex, and it seems to still be about as even as it ever was, so yeah. Alright, well, it's been a little bit since I've been working on an update. It's mostly just been over the summer. The weather's been really hot, and it's been pretty much over 100 degrees every single day, and I don't really get all that interested in working outside when it's that hot. Anywho, I did a bit of painting today, and I got this finished up a little bit of this side corner, and then of course this whole rear panel here. Went ahead and got the whole top of the roof done over as well. It's just a rattle can paint job, so it's really not the best. For what it is, I think it'll, I think people will be staring at other parts of this vehicle long before they, get really picky about the paint job. So, for what it is, I'm pretty happy with it. In this light in particular, you can definitely see the difference between the old paint color and the new. I did a bit of painting on this, and I would have done a bit more painting around here and there, but I'm still planning on welding that set of frames onto these sets of frames, so trying not to make more work for myself at this point. And there's a face only a mother could love. Went ahead and spent the entire day disassembling the last couple pieces that needed to be painted. Got that side painted up, and I stared at everything and I figured, well, it'd be easier to paint the fenders and the front trim piece if I took the bumper off, and then I decided, well, maybe it'd be better if I took that off as well, and then one thing led to another, and yeah, I just took off both fenders and a couple of these extra railing pieces and just painted them separately, and it ended up being easier, to me at least, than going in and taping everything up and masking everything. Also afforded me the excellent opportunity to get more pinecone debris out from the little nooks and crannies. I'm gonna pull out the vacuum cleaner and hit everything again, just to get it as good as I can while we're here. But yeah, and I did pull out at least one more full-sized pinecone out of this mess, so they're still hanging around. Really does look kind of weird without any fenders or bumpers or anything on it. Man, I'll tell you, this dryer lint stuff is quick, cheap, and easy, but it's gonna take me a lot of laundry runs in order to finish the whole floor. Well, back to it, I guess. Well, it took a lot of laundry lint, but we got there in the end. Now, all joking aside, I actually got this at Goodwill. They just had a big roll of it marked moving blanket, and I stared at that and went, huh, this looks almost exactly what I have in my other two Chevys over there. So, yeah, and in fact, this is better because it's got the rubber backing on it. So, yeah, figured I needed some kind of a heat/sound barrier, so went ahead and did this up. There's a couple places, mostly around the front wheel wells and engine compartment, that are a little more pieced together, but more or less the entire thing is just two separate pieces, so should be pretty easy to work with. But yeah, I still need to go find some fasteners that'll fit in there, and I need to figure out what I did with the rubber seal that goes around the outside of the doghouse, because otherwise it doesn't really sit properly the way it's really meant to. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the fitment I managed to get, and between the rubber backing and holding it down with these strips, and I guess to a certain extent a little bit around the doghouse here and there, it's definitely not going to be moving around, flapping around all over the place. Also, I went ahead and threw the dashboard back in. I did notice, given that I had to cut out one of the turn signals, the turn signals don't seem to want to work at all now. And that doesn't really surprise me, because I've already torn out all the other stuff. They were kind of finicky already. Something's screwy there, but given that I'm going to have to rewire pretty much all the lights at this point, for side markers and brake lights and whatnot, I figure I got to do it anyways, so we'll figure that out. I did a bunch of work pulling some of the miscellaneous wiring that used to go to the tail lamps and the side markers and the electronic door switch for the rear door. It would have been nice to have electric locks on this door, but the original main doors don't have electric anything, and they don't really have any provisions to put in electric anything, unfortunately. I mean, you can even see, staring in at the door jamb, they don't even give you any place to run the wires into the doors, so yeah, unfortunately these are going to have to be the base model doors unless I decide I want to go to the wreckers and pick up whole new doors. but that's not really worth it for what I'm using this truck for. So yeah. And this is all the junk I keep inside the car that I had to pull out of the car in order to put the carpet down. Yeah, that was fun. But onwards and upwards. Man, I'll tell you, dryer limp is... dryer limp? No, that's when your dryer is not quite working right.